Sometimes when you're working on these old cars, things don't go exactly as you expect it to. That's what happened in this case. I had about 3 or 4 different things I was trying to accomplish in working with the steering wheel. One, I had got a new steering wheel. It's sitting on there now. I've actually pretty much finished except for putting the horn assembly back, and I think this one's worn out, so I'm waiting for another one. I don't really know if it's worn out. And then there's the blinker assembly that was broken. You can see that normally on this it would have clips right down here to flip it off and on when the wheel turns. So that was broke. Plus the steering was not balanced, so I could turn sharper to the right than to the left. So I had several things I was trying to accomplish with the thing, and I had never gotten into the blinker. The primary thing I wanted to do was replace the blinker because they weren't going off, and I was driving down the street most of the time with my blinker on. So I've already done all the videos on this, and I'm just doing basically right here is going to be a public service announcement for people who haven't done this before, and I'll put the videos up. There's several different pieces. It may seem broken, possibly, you know, piecemeal, but it's what it is. A lot of things happen. I had the wheel off 3 and 4 times. I had the assemblies in and out several times, so it might look piecemeal. My hope is that it gives you an idea what you need to do. The biggest problem that I created was I went too far when I was doing the replacement of the blinker. I did not need to take off the 2 bolts that held the collar on, and I did not need to take off the washer that held the collar on. I ended up breaking the washer. There it is there with its little piece, and I couldn't find a replacement for this, so I got something similar and basically filed it down to size. I think a lot of people would do that. I'm not even sure that in the end that it went on back in the spot it should have gone, and I'm also not sure whether the 2 bolts that held the collar really connected with everything. It feels like everything's on there, but I'm not positive. I've heard a lot of people trying to do the 2 bolts that hold the collar on, that you had to sort of hook it around a square piece of this frame, not the frame, but the pole coming up the center. I don't know how that really worked out. My point is, I did not need to actually take off those 2 bolts, but when I loosened them to be able to move things around and get the wire and stuff out of there, one of them fell inside, and you can get it out there because it just goes down and you can get it out. The problem is you can't get it back in unless you disassemble the collar that's on the steering wheel. That's where my problem was, that a bolt fell out and then I couldn't get it back in unless I take the collar apart. And to take the collar apart, I had to take off the snap ring and then pull it out with a puller. You use a 3-prong puller. You'll see that in there. I created more problems for myself than I needed. Had I just left those bolts alone and just went with the assembly, there's just 3 screws on this assembly, I'd have been much better off. So don't create these problems for you. I'll add these videos in now. Hope it helps you in whatever you're doing. Have a good day. Here's the puller. Here's the puller I used to pull off this collar. Let me turn it down. Got the screws on here are 8/32. They're 4 inches long. Happen to be 4 inches to fit this puller with the end of that connect the end in there, because it ends up needing about 4 inches. So you screw that in there and then put your bolt on the center column. Put your bolt on the column there, and then use this puller to pull this ring off. It worked pretty good. This one right here just sits in there because it's held in by the other one. You can see how it sits in there. On mine, it probably can function as a shifter or something. That's why it does that. But in general, this piece does not move in here. So that's that part. There aren't many videos on how this collar reassembles to the steering column. On the back side, you have these two square indents with the holes right there and right there. There's a bolt and a nut in that one. Notice how this bolt is square. On the front side, it looks like that's one of those. In general, I would say that you should never completely take these screws loose. The reason is they fall inside and then you have to take this whole thing off. So I think to assemble it, you put these in and then you bring it over to the car, and on each side there's a cut right here. The other side's got one too. The square end of it goes right in there, so you push it and angle it so it holds it and tighten it down, and it pulls on this collar and holds it against that, which holds this whole assembly in place. This assembly right here, the second collar, or the bigger, fatter one, it's basically sitting here loose. It's just sitting in here. You can see me moving it. It's pushed down. It was apparently for a shifting, maybe for an automatic transmission or something, but it's not used in this car because this car is a 4-speed. But at any rate, so you put the other collar on the top here, you take your square bolts and you hook them into that hole that's on the side right there. Now that's what I believe happens. That's how I think it works. Somebody might say it's different, but in my opinion, you should put these bolts in here because you can't get to the back of them. And if you ever take the nut off, it'll fall in, and then you have to take this off, which is hard to take off. You need a puller tool. So you can take these loose and then, but I would recommend you don't take them off unless you're taking the whole assembly off. Okay. Now I lubricated this column as best I could. I put, white grease in there as much as I could. We got the bolts in right here and right here. And it's solid. I'm not sure, based on the fact that it rides in there kind of hard, that you can tell. There's the gap. It isn't very much of a gap there. Now, once you get that assembled, there's one that I'll show you right here. I got 3 of these. This is the original snap ring that I broke. So then I got this one and this one to see if I could maybe bend these. There was really no gap on this one, the broken piece. They're almost together. So I'm thinking this one, I might have to file it down. Maybe not. Well, yeah, that one's actually, well, it's hard to say. So I'm going to use these snap rings, and they go right in there, right in that groove, and hold that bearing in. I looked at a bearing with 2 snap rings and some other little part is like 150 bucks. So I don't have a problem spending money on it, but when a snap ring is 50 cents, to spend 150 bucks on something like that is just a little bit much. So I re-greased the bearing, shoved it back in there. It's going to work out just fine. If that snap ring is going to work just fine, so we'll find out here. Okay, that snap ring does not work in my opinion. You can see it right there. I'm going to file down the edges, and I think that'll let it work. But you can see it's not in the groove, and it's not under it. There's a channel in there it's got to fit in. So that's not going to work until I file it. The turn signal indicator that goes with this is a 7.5 inch for this 69 GTX. I'm pretty sure this original 7.5 inch, and it's not stainless. It's like polished satin finish or something. This one screw goes through the center goes through the center post right here and connects to the blinker over here. So let's see what we can do with that. I don't think I can do it with one hand, but anything's possible. I would say with that chamfered or with that end this way. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. So I'm gonna put you down and hook this up. So install the new blinker switch. Has a plate right here. There's 3 screws. This cutout goes right here by this roller switch. This roller switch right here rolls on top of your, that's what, hey Mike! So then use this screw to screw in your arm. Okay. So the wires from this thing, you can run them through the back here. They come underneath. I wrap these up with tape. They're not normally that way, but goes in through here, goes into this hole here, comes out right here. So it comes out separate. They give you this plug to put those together. Here's my old plug. So what I'll do is match colors. Match colors with the old one. Now when this is done, plug it, I believe, over the top. This is laying down here, but you want it over the top of the column, not under the column. So I think there's, how many wires are it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I think there's 10 slots in here. So you have to figure out what goes where. I'll clean that up a little bit. In working on this, there's this piece right here, just slides this way and then pull it down. It travels up into this section here, but it's covering the wire loom. And then it's got just a screw here and a screw on the other side, and that'll hold it in place. I loosened these bolts so that I had room to slide it in here. These 2 bolts and 2 right over here to hold the collar. And if you can see, I still got some movement in my shaft here, and I loosened the bolts here to over here too. These, let's see, can you see it? Yeah, that one and that one, but this one right here also, which holds the whole thing there. So now I'll just put in 2 little screws in here, and that'll be done. And hook up my wires over to the other side above the steering column, and then all I'll have to do is work on this. Yep, 5 days later, still messing with it. So had a problem with the switch that I bought. It seems to be a generic switch. The arms on it do not contact with the steering wheel part on the bottom. See that post right there? See that post sticking out? The arms here, that's the canceling arm right here. The canceling arm is not, it sticks out too far. So I actually rubber banded in, and to tell you the truth, that's not a bad solution, because the other solution is you get another canceling arm and you cut the wires on the end here, these 2 wires, and then you pry it off. I'm probably going to break this turn signal if I do that. I'm not sure the canceling arm I've got, so I might end up with a canceling arm I can't use and a broken $100 switch. So for me, I'm going to try this solution, which is just rubber bands in there, which pull the arms down, which so when the post swings back, it's going to hit it. So also something else right on top, can you see the mark I made? That's the groove for the bigger channel. And the same with in the steering wheel, there's a groove in there. There's a groove, I think, in the steering wheel there's 1 groove, but on the post here, there's a groove top and bottom. I don't have my wheel lined up right, and it's because the entire assembly for the car, all the brakes, all the suspension, the steering box, everything was taken off, so it didn't line up right. So what I have to do is, if you look down in there, can you see it? Yeah, right there. Yeah, I have to knock the roll pin out of that connector and then turn it and put it back on. I've aligned the steering so everything's correct except for knocking that roll pin out, which is going to be sort of a pain. But that's where I'm at. Here's the other canceling arm. This is the one that you can put in there, but you have to knock out the bolt in the middle of the thing, and I think it's kind of hokey pokey. So I'm gonna go mess with this for a while. I've got a canceling arm if I want to use it later, but I'm gonna try and see how this works with the rubber bands pulling the arms in closer. These arms, by the way, are not all that close either, so I could actually take it all apart, knock it out, and find out that this doesn't work either. So for right now, I'm going to do this little fix. The moral of the story here is, once you get into this, expect to spend some time on it, especially if you can't find the right part. And that really is the case here. I don't think I'm going to be able to match it up. Classic Car Industries couldn't find me a part that fits this. The best solution, they said, was the canceling cam here, which is just a $12 part. But I don't know that it's actually going to do the job either, and I don't know if it's going to fit in there. It's got, if you can see, it's got these posts on it. So I'm going to use rubber bands first, see if that does anything. If that doesn't, then plan B is this thing. Alrighty, just another update. It's a long process. Alright, so here's my parts from Classic Industries. I got this cam here, comes with these connectors. There's the cam nut, which is useless in this application. There's your part number from Classic Industries. Here's my old part. You can see how the arms on the cam broke. It is, both of them are missing. So what they're asking you to do is to take this piece off of here and replace it with this piece, and you'll have to cut and solder wires. I actually cut the wire. I cut this out. It just made it easier to get it off, but you know, it couldn't be reused anyway, and it had to be cut, but it's too bad. The one I have in the car and that you've seen, the one with the rubber bands on it, it's not exactly right. That's why the rubber bands are on it. But when you do this one, this is not good either. I'm not sure that this distance right here is going to be right. It could be, but this piece right here, you can't get it out if you drill it. So we'll be talking about, I'm just using this as an example because the other one's in the car. So if I want to put this on the one in the car, I'm going to need to get out that piece right there, which it looks like this. So you'd have to pry that out. You can see I pried on it, and I can't get it out. It's going to take a lot of force. I'm probably going to break something. And that's why I'm saying you could drill it out, but then you don't have that nut. You don't have it available. You know, it's a catch-22. There's not a good solution for this. The instructions here say, say basically they're dealing with a post type where there's a post in the center, and that's the same with here with post type. Even though this looks like it fits, and it could fit this 69 GTX, it's a tough sell because your original part, you can't get apart, not easily. And then again, the part in the car, I think is going to be the same scenario, that I'm going to break it to put this on. So that's where we're at. I just came in here today to see if I could maybe take this apart and make it work, but I don't believe it's going to. I think I'm going to break something here to get this apart, and so then what good is it? I've looked online for the actual part that I need. I can't find it. So If you want to see some obtainium, take a look right here. This is unobtainium. Yeah, that's it. That's the stuff. It's rare. Unobtainium. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Well, I took a punch to it. That's the bad part. There's a good part. Doesn't look like I did too much damage to it, so I would say put a punch on it, pound it. One or two whacks and it came loose. So that might be a method. If that method works, that might work. All right, back to plan B, C, and D. So I went ahead and pried off the one that doesn't cancel correctly. Cut off the leads. They're sitting right here, 1 and 2. Now I'm going to put on this other canceling arm. So I've got to wire it up, and there it is right there. So instead of use rubber bands, we'll try the canceling arm. Found a piece of metal laying in the bottom right down in here. Nah, I don't know where that came from. Probably fell off of something here, but it looks newish. Hard to say. So that's where I'm at. Okay, that's soldered and taped on. Nicely soldered. I'm gonna lift take these screws off and push it out behind it. I think you can see my this ring, C-ring. That's not where it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be down in there further. So I'm going to work on getting that clip down in there. I've actually loosened the whole shaft. So I'm going to conclude this. Who knows? I could be screwing around with this for another month. So I think you've seen the most information. Now this is going to push on here. And then I should have a good canceling arm in there. Okay. That's it. Camp base out. And so how this goes on is just press it on, and to get it off I was just put a screwdriver between this one and that one and pry it off. That's how I did it. I don't know for a fact I haven't broken anything, but that's how I accomplished that. Just pried it off the face. As you can see from this piece here, it's just a block. There's no holding arms. It just slides over it. So that's really the most important thing, is that you see what this looks like, and that you see the hole that's right in there. So it just slides on it. It's kind of forced on, and yes, it's rough to pry it off, but you can pry it off. Well, I guess the saga continues. I've forced this down onto here. So haven't secured this back in, but you can tell will actually cancel it, but it won't click on and click off. So it's, what I'm trying to say is there's posts on this canceling arm that are responsible for clicking, and they don't work correctly with this other piece under here. See, there's no clicking. So when you put it on, it'll cancel it, but it's not going to click in place. Click on, click off. So I guess essentially what I've got here is about $150 worth of crap.